Today I've got 3 easy ways for you to punch up ink blended backgrounds. Now if you missed the initial video, which actually showcases the background and my initial thoughts on the new domed ink blending tools and applicators, that's linked below or at the end of this video. Hi, my name is Ingrid Blackburn. This channel is about exploring fun, simple techniques to make the most of your supplies. First up, we're going to talk a little bit about blending with this tool directly onto a stamp and what makes it different from others. Let's dive right in. So I've got the fall sampler from scrapbook.com. We're going to use this solid stamp, and you can see here that I'm going to take my ink pads and go directly to the stamp. So I'm using Catherine Pooler ink just like we did from the background. These are coordinating colors, and I've got the Sauna and the Mandarin Spice, but here I'm going to take the dome blended tool. I'm just going to tap, tap, tap right on top of that. You don't want to do it too much because you don't want to risk pulling too much up, but what makes this tool different than other tools is I find that it's a little bit lighter and a little bit more of an airier tool than some of the flat ones, which tend to soak up a lot of that ink. So what you end up getting as a result is a really flawless just transition between those two. And you can do this with larger stamps as well, but look at that, it's just beautiful. And for our second technique, we're going to do a little bit of edging. This is a tried and true technique that I love to do on my projects, whether it's the entire outside of a card panel or an element such as this. You can just take your tool very easily, and because this tool is a little bit more compact and it's got those dome sides, because what that really does is it helps not only give you a crisp, perfect edging, but exactly where you want it without fear of going too far into your project and edging something that you didn't want. Next up, adding pattern with stencils. And for this, I'm going to do a little bit more of a comparison of these tools side by side and really showcase how different they really are. I'm keeping it somewhat, not crazy dark, a little lighter, so you can get a really good shot of this. I want it to be a little darker in the center here with this petal flower. We'll call it a petal flower. This is a mandala. Let's get the corners really well for a little bit more of a darker tone. And a little on the other side as well. I had started this and thought I was filming, and I wasn't. It happens. And just keep the rest of it light. That way there's a little contrast, it's not all the same, but let's make these corners darker. Okay, and we'll lift this up. I had this secured with some purple tape and some painter's tape. I'll be honest, the painter's tape I think works better for that instance. I find that this is definitely less tacky, which is what you want sometimes in tape, but in this case, I think it's better to have something that has a little more tack to it. So, and now I'm going to use my Ranger tips. Next up, we're going to add a little bit of brown. I would say that for stenciling, I may like these tips a little bit better, only because maybe it's just the feeling of the abrasiveness of the other kind, the foam, whereas this is more like a sponge. So it may get through here a little different. Okay, well, there's a point as to why you might want both kind of tips. But you know what? Ultimately, these are amazing tools. So after my little experiment, I started to look at these a little bit more in depth and to kind of notice a difference here. So this is definitely a sponge tip. Absolutely, it's a sponge tip. But you can see that it's kind of glued to the base of this Velcro piece, or the Velcro backing is definitely glued directly to the tip, whereas this one has a little bit more support. It has a little bit more of a foam core in here, from what I can tell, and then that's glued to the tip, and this definitely feels a little bit more like a sponge dauber than an actual spongy sponge, but then I can't say for sure if it's the same kind of material or not. This one definitely drags on the surface versus this one. That's the biggest difference, and considering they go on the exact same tool, there is a slight difference in size, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that these are tapered on the edge here. So you have that round dome, which honestly, I really like because it leaves for much less chance of an error. That being said, I did find that now you can definitely stencil with this. I had no problem doing it whatsoever. I did find that this was a little easier to work with stencil. So there's a case to be made for having both.
quite honestly. And, look at it this way. You all have these already. And if you don't, they've been around a long time. And this is a great tool to have. If you've been looking to get a couple more tools, definitely encourage you to get the handles, a couple more handles. It might be nice to have some gray in your stash. But definitely get yourself quite a few tips and think about different types of inks too. If you use oxides, you're going to want a different tip than you will for dye-based inks. And it's nice that you can just buy a bunch of these.
Not so fast. You didn't think we were done, did you? I have more. Leave me a comment and a thumbs up and click these next two videos. One teaches you how to easily create a realistic snowdrift and the other just how to get that effortless blend in a background. In addition, you'll hear my live pros and cons to using the domed versus flat tools for the very first time. I'll catch you right over there.